Thank you. Um, can you have maybe like the house lights on and not this stuff right over me? Yeah, except I'm feeding in to the program, I think. That mic is live.
Oh, I'll turn it off now.
Yeah, because I'm hearing myself on the YouTube.
Okay.
Welcome to our very first virtual Vanguard program. I'm Eileen Carr, coordinator of the ArtsLIVE performance series at the University of Dayton. It's my pleasure to welcome you here virtually for this performance by Les Délices, an early music ensemble from Cleveland. Their performance, entitled Bewitched, focuses on love, appropriate for February 14th. It features a fabulous soprano, harpsichordist, and other musicians on early music instruments. I think that you will find their performance a rich and satisfying one, even though it is virtual. This hour-long program will be followed by a live Q&A session. We invite you to participate. While you won't see your face on screen, we'll welcome your comments and your questions. Use the live chat feature of YouTube. You should find the live chat option to the right of your screen. You can enter those comments at any time during the program, and we hope to draw on them in the live Q&A following the concert. A couple final notes. There's no need, of course, to be quiet, as we usually ask, but we do want to make sure that you're aware this recorded program will be available for 48 hours following the Sunday premiere. If you want to watch it again, please do, or share it with a friend. We'd be thankful. The program is free for our audiences thanks to the financial support of the College of Arts and Sciences here at the university, as well as the Vanguard Legacy Endowment. Thanks to both of them. We also want to add that we have 2 additional programs scheduled this spring. Look for them on March 7th and April 11th. There's more information on our website, go.udayton.edu/artslive. But for now, we hope you enjoy. Thank you.
We are so glad to present this exclusive online program for the ArtsLIVE performance series. Thanks so much to the University of Dayton for making this presentation possible and for sharing it with the community. Tonight's program is filled with magical music. The harpsichord solo Vertigo by Pancrace will take us to the brink of madness. While in the cantatas by Clérambault and Blamont, you'll hear witches slowly summoning demons, casting spells, shaking the very foundations of the earth, and opening the gates of hell. Musical sparks fly, black vapors fill the sky, and the world at times is turned upside down. The opening of François Couperin's Sonade La Françoise feels alternately mysterious and foreboding, and full of wild, frenetic energy. It's the chromaticism, the shifting harmonies, and the seemingly infinite repetitions that remind us of magical music, evoking diverse imagery from murky, shadowy darkness to swirling flashes of light. Witches are powerful, fearsome characters whose dark arts are shrouded in mystery. Throughout history, we've been fascinated by witches and other spirits flying through the air, taking on the form of birds, and much more. But they're also women, mothers, and, at least in part, mortal. I think we're doubly fascinated by the complexity of witches' stories and their emotional responses. For one thing, we think about good witches and bad ones, and perhaps those that lie somewhere along the spectrum. Circé, for instance, may have turned men into beasts, but was this out of spite or for her own protection as a single woman living alone? Furthermore, Circé had a special relationship with Odysseus, and she not only let him and his men go, but she also gave them crucial advice to ease their way home to Ithaca. Circe's niece Medea, on the other hand, suffered harsh judgment for her criminal acts, which included murdering her brother, her children, and poisoning her husband and his new lover. But as we'll hear in Clérambault's cantata, even she could recognize that she hurt herself, even as she committed her acts of violence.
Clérambault's Medée doesn't start at the beginning of Medea's story, and it's worth considering her full backstory because she becomes much more sympathetic if we do. The sorceress Medea defied her father and gave up everything she knew out of love for the warrior Jason. She gave him glory, and he married her out of guilt. She explains in the opening recitative of the cantata, seduced by his fausse tendresse, his false affection, I dared to betray my father and the gods. In fact, Jason wouldn't have captured the golden fleece without Medea's help, and without the fleece, he would never have become king of Iolcos. But Jason never fully appreciated that, and his selfishness becomes a major issue. So disregarding duty, glory, as well as Medea's love, Jason falls for a younger woman and plots to rid himself of Medea. The cantata begins after Medea discovers Jason's plans to leave her, and she's not going to take it lying down. As you'll hear in a bluster of 16th notes from the ensemble, Medea calls for vengeance. Courons à la vengeance, d'épis mortels allumez mon courroux. Let's hasten to vengeance. Deadly anger, ignite my wrath. There are moments in this cantata when we see Medea's vulnerability or even softness. One remarkable moment comes in the middle of the cantata, where she's describing being in love with Jason as being a prisoner, chained by his love. So she loves him, but has always strained against her loss of independence. And yes, she's a witch, but that's such a relatable position. When he betrays her and falls in love with another woman, it's not just that he's rejected her, it's his ignorance of everything she's given up for him. I also love that right after Medea's first rage aria, where she seems so confident, so intent on revenge, she reverses course and sings, Que dis-je? What am I saying? My own heart is rebelling against me. She's vacillating between feelings of strong affection for Jason and absolute hatred of this new woman, who she only refers to as ma rivale, my rival. It's not until the incantation scene, near the very end of the piece, that she truly commits to vengeance.
Et le ce moment, si vite à ce qui m'aime. C'est trop souffrir des offranses si cruelles, vengeant ma flamme malheureuse, et bonne gloire jasant à des mots éternels, en perdant ma rivale heureuse. Et bonne gloire jasant à des mots éternels, en perdant ma rivale heureuse. Cruelle fille des
Le Vertigo comes from a collection of harpsichord pieces published in 1746 in France by a composer still little known today, Royer. This composer was active around the same time as a more famous composer, Jean-Philippe Rameau, and both of these composers took delight in writing music for the opera. In fact, many of the pieces from this collection of harpsichord pieces were adapted from Royer's operatic works. So what does Vertigo refer to? Actually, for Royer, le Vertigo probably meant something more like fantasy or caprice. But at the same time, I think it also does refer to what we understand as vertigo, that feeling of disorientation or dizziness that comes from looking down from a great height. There are two sorts of characters in this piece that alternate constantly. And in fact, this is where that feeling of disorientation, I think, comes about in the piece. The very rapid-fire alternation of these two characters. On the one hand, we have a character that's sort of a little bit melancholy or perhaps a little bit withdrawn. And then on the other hand, a character that's extremely extroverted, very physical, and very nervous as well. And even beyond these two characters, I think what's being alternated in the piece is not just character, but also quality of motion. Again, thinking about vertigo as a feeling of dizziness. If you imagine that suddenly you get, say, thrown from a merry-go-round that's going around quickly, you feel disoriented, moving from motion to stasis. And this is something Royer does constantly in alternating his two characters. So as you're listening to this piece, I encourage you to watch out for the times that Royer moves from one character to the next. For example, the opening of the piece. Already at the beginning, we have sort of two ideas going on at once. We have this very sort of withdrawn and static repeated chordal pattern in the left hand, and then a slightly more extroverted scale in the right hand. A little bit later on, we have these really extraordinary repeated chords that come actually over and over again in the piece. Over and over again. It's a kind of chattering quality that Royer delights in. And then I think the best example of this alternation of characters comes partway through the B section of the piece, where you find that Royer alternates the two bar by bar as extremely as possible. He begins shocking, one character to the next, continuing etc. So see how many times you feel disoriented as you listen to this piece, Le Vertigo by Royer.
Compared with Medea, the Circé of Homer's Odyssey was a comparatively benevolent figure, an awe-inspiring sorceress who famously turned men into beasts by means of magic potions. She is powerful, but not fundamentally vengeful. It's out of admiration and respect for Ulysses that she returns his soldiers to their human forms, while giving Ulysses crucial advice and guidance that aids him in the remainder of his journey. Most notably, she willingly lets him and his men leave her island.
Colin de Blamont continually revised the explosive, powerful music of Circé. It initially appeared in his first book of cantatas for voice and continuo. And 6 years later, in Book 3, Blamont reissued the piece with new obligato instrumental parts. Finally, several manuscript pages, thought to be penned by the composer himself, were inserted into a single copy, now at the National Library in Paris, which transmit an instrumental prelude, rife with dissonance and chromatic churning, and turn the opening recitative into an emotional tour de force. It's this final, amped-up version that you hear tonight.
It's thrilling to embody Circé in this cantata. Above all, she is a very powerful sorceress, and poet Jean-Baptiste Rousseau imbued the cantata's text with graphic, violent depictions of her magic. There are bloody altars, black vapors, and the dead rising from their graves. In her anger, Circé literally releases the hounds of hell, causing earthquakes and making the rivers run backwards.
Suivre la trace, elle croit Torna
So, Dan. Okay. How's the mic? Looks like we'll get started in just a minute. Thank you all. It's been really, really wonderful having you here virtually. Thank you so much. All right. We're very happy to welcome you here virtually to Sears Recital Hall, which is where you would have been performing. So thank you very much for the work that you did. Such an impressive performance, especially led by Hannah and put together by Debra. Mark, your playing was phenomenal. And Rebecca, beautiful. Just you tied it all together. I have to say, I'm Eileen Carr, coordinator here, and you know, initially, a year ago or more, we thought it'd be a lovely thing on Valentine's Day to have a performance that people could share in the afternoon. We really were interested in this program of Bewitched because there is a theme of love, but I'll tell you what, it's so dramatic and so wrought with emotion, betrayal, and drama. Hannah, how did you handle singing such a dramatic program? I have to say, I should probably couch that and say, you know, when I think of early music, I don't think drama, but this was dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, this kind of like opulent, dramatic music is some of my favorite to sing ever. We were speaking with your students earlier this week, and the thing that we kept coming back to, and the thing that I always think of when I approach these French Baroque cantatas, is they're really miniature operas. And I mean, for a singer, getting to play especially supernatural characters who are really supposed to be larger than life, it's a special thrill. I do remember when I was learning this music, of course, you know, in my little apartment during the first lockdown, my dog would like run and hide every time we got to like the big incantation scene, which I took to be a very good sign that I was doing something right.
Right.
Well,
yeah, I love to put together these programmatic programs. And, as we, Hannah and I talked with students and some faculty earlier this week, this particular program makes such a strong argument, I think, for rhetoric, and for the idea of moving the passions. There's such strong emotions that we're able to get across and transmit and portray, especially when we have such a deeply dramatic storyline to inspire us.
And I'd love to hear, of course, from all of you. There are no words, of course, to go with Vertigo, Mark, but that was a phenomenal performance, inspired. There was clearly a lot of emotion there.
Yeah, I think Debra talked about rhetoric, and I think it's very easy to think in those terms in such a piece because it's built out of these very short cells, very, very short ideas alternating one after the next. And so making each of those ideas speak as much as possible and then sort of concatenating them, that's where the drama actually comes from.
It was remarkable to see the energy and the concentration, really beautiful. Rebecca, you don't obviously bring a lot of sort of high-level drama, but the viola da gamba is just such a rich instrument, providing the sort of the foundation for everything that goes on. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely, yeah. The choice to have that viola da gamba sound featured in Circé with the aria with the viola da gamba and voice, it's the most beautiful. It's such a sweet and heartfelt vocal tone to the instrument itself. And Circé is going through these deep emotions that are so humanizing. And the way that they weave together is just spellbinding. It's wonderful how it can affect your emotions in such a simple way just by using a viola da gamba versus a cello. It just brings a special quality to the sound.
Debra, you spoke in some of the comments as I was watching the program about having read actually a fairly recent or modern take on Circé. How did that inform what you were doing here?
Well, I wouldn't say it's so much informed as definitely excited. Both Hannah and I, and also our executive director, Laura Wiegand, had also read Madeline Miller's Circé, and one of the things that's so wonderful about Miller's portrayal of Circé in her novel is not just that it takes a sort of feminist perspective and sort of centers the story around Circé instead of centering the story around Ulysses' experience of Circé, but she's also so humanized. Mm-hmm. This fearsome goddess actually is a vulnerable and emotional, and not just kind of like extreme emotions, but a whole kaleidoscope of different colors of emotions, like the entire span of the rainbow and everything in between. So she becomes a very multifaceted character in that novel. And then it was interesting having just read that novel a couple of weeks before we recorded this program, to be seeking some of those sort of humanized, feminized elements within the Blamont. And I think we do get just glimpses of that, and the viola da gamba aria is one of those really tender moments. Or in Clérambault's Medée, the wonderful and very, very magical aria that the one moment of recorder with the violin that's in unison with the voice creates this completely ethereal, totally different sound, and in that way makes the character, a completely different kind of softened and let's just say more deep kind of portrayal. So I think it's wonderful to be able to not really search for, but recognize those moments. So there's a lot of high drama. There's a lot of opening the gates of hell and earthquakes and all the different things that these powerful women have at their disposal. But the kind of humanization and the vulnerability is also really beautiful, and the contrast is great.
Thank you so much, Debra, and all. How did it feel, and what were those maybe additional challenges of trying to put together this program, not just to do your performance, but to record it and to do it in such a way that it would really resonate? Because I think, in addition to just spectacular performances, it was really beautifully put together and really supported us, both in terms of what you were sharing, the text, Hannah, and explaining, kind of setting the stage for us, and of course seeing a little bit of the preparations. But you really did a very new and complete job. Was this easy? No.
I'd love to invite others to speak about their experience recording, and then I'm happy to reflect on what the planning was like.
Well, I'll say it was very clear from the first day that Debra had assembled a crack team for behind the scenes, and of course my colleagues, these fantastic musicians, which was, especially after a long hiatus away from rehearsing and performing, it felt absolutely incredible to walk into rehearsal that first day. I was totally in awe of all of Erica Brenner's work with the videography, her vision, and of course I think with a lot of input from Debra, who had a very clear idea of what she wanted, to sort of, the idea that a filmed concert doesn't need to be a sort of like, oh, well, this is the best we can do. It can rather be a really inventive, immersive, totally different, and really valuable. Valuable not just because we're in a pandemic, but valuable because it's so much thought and care and time went into it. So it was a pleasure to be part of something so creatively done. I will say it was mentally, that day of recording, it was difficult, because what you're trying to do is you're aware of the cameras on you. There were like 10 high definition cameras like all around you.
It felt like 10. It was fine.
Yeah, maybe there wasn't actually 10. In my mind, it was just cameras. And then in addition to that, you're trying really hard to stay in the moment, because of course you're aware that this needs to feel like a performance every take. But you also want the audio and the tuning and everything to be just right. So it felt kind of like a mix between shooting a music video, performing, and making a CD all at the same time, which was a lot.
Yeah, I think that. Sorry.
Rebecca, I guess, Rebecca, I want to just say, did you ever think you would be in an early music video? Really? Are we ready for MTV?
Getting there.
It was magical, though, the first time that I saw the Bewitched program, because the people who had been doing all the lighting and making all of those decisions, all their work came to life. Like when in Medea, when she casts a spell and the lights go down, they had timed that to record when there was a sunset. So the whole light in the room changed, and I hadn't really put that together until I saw it for the first time. But there were so many decisions that weren't about music, but were just about including people in the ensemble, making you feel like you were there in the group with us. That comes to life with that video.
Mark, I think that was maybe especially true. Well, certainly, Hannah, we saw quite a lot of you, but I think the close-ups, particularly of Mark and your keyboard work, there are front row seats, but that was better than a front row seat.
True. I mean, this is a time when we're all, I think, hopefully missing live performance.
Very much.
But at the same time, we can also recognize that that presenting performances in this way carries a number of virtues that you can't really capture in any other way. And it's true that this very sort of intimate, close presence at the keyboard or with the singer or with the viol, with whoever is sort of being focused at a particular moment is something that that this particular medium does so well. I would be hard pressed to imagine creating a similar kind of situation in a live concert.
One of the things that I remember being so impacted by, and I remember, you know, it was pretty late at night, as I recall, when we had to record the Vertigo, and a lot of extra time was being taken to set up all these additional camera shots. But the very first time, you know, sort of halfway through Vertigo, when Erica Brenner, our videographer, brings in this overhead shot on the keyboard, it's like, no, you've never seen anything like that. And it really just, you know, it opened up another dimension, which was so exciting. But, you know, Eric and I had many conversations, hours of conversations before we ever shot this program, which was the first one of several that we did together in the fall. You know, trying to plan what is remaking the experience of a concert for the audience, and, you know, trying to simulate something that was almost like a concert in the round, in a way, that with the idea that the audience should feel like they are in the ensemble or at the very, you know, or around us. But and I also felt very passionately, and even as I'm editing or working on comments for other programs that are still in production at the moment, considering how music, as I understand it, not just, oh, the gamba's playing now, so let's put the camera on, you know, let's put the focus over there, or, you know, Mark just played a cool lick, so let's make sure that we captured that, you know, on camera in the harpsichord, you know, but, you know, with the power of this particular line of text that we hear for the first time, let's make sure that we have a direct shot on the soprano. And after that, we can move around and change our, you know, attention and focus. So just the idea that the editing should really support and enrich the listening, as opposed to, you know, just being, you know, a sort of round robin experience.
So Debra, you've done done a really interesting job, not just clearly in your role as artistic director here and musician, but now you've become a video director, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all in the service of, you know, of making this argument and rhetoric and creating something compelling. So it's been rewarding and interesting, and I gave far too much thought to when sundown was in any particular week, and how to organize the filming around it.
And the bells.
And the bells.
And
yeah.
the bells, great.
And, you know, and let's not forget the 6 p.m. bells and the 12 p.m. bells and the 3 p.m. bells, and make sure the air conditioning is off and all of that.
Debra, this is not your only program this year. You've had an ensemble here, a program, Les Délices, which has been going, what, for 12 years? Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Les Délices presents a series in Cleveland. Yeah. For 12 years.
So do you have another production that you're working on right now that you want to share with people and suggest a way to find that?
Sure. We have actually a variety of things going on. This ensemble with 2 other soloists is actually, with Les Délices, we're premiering a new program that includes Baroque dance, as well as some sung version of Aesop's Fables, actually later this week. On the 18th of February, and you can find out more about that. And the program is called Games and Grounds at our website for Les Délices, lesdelices.org. And the other thing that Les Délices has been doing, which is free to watch, and is something called Salon Era. And It is essentially sort of a early music variety show inspired by the musical salons of the 17th, 18th, and even 19th centuries. And it has been a real kind of innovative product of the pandemic, if you will, at a moment where it's very difficult for us to all collaborate in person. It's a program and a project that is built around remote collaboration. The whole program is produced remotely. And so we have different guest artists every other Monday night. And we are talking with them, we are sharing their music, and we also create several remote collaborations specifically for each episode involving those artists. And it's been very, very wide-ranging music and repertoire and conversation, and so that has been very exciting. So those are the two major projects that we've been working on, the concert series and the Salon era.
I just comment that it's ironic that we have this. You have a particular program that focuses on the salon, but in effect these all become a kind of salon because we're all watching them in our living rooms or wherever we are. So thank you for making it possible for us to bring this kind of performance to people all over, regardless of our challenges this year. And they have been significant, but I do want to wrap up. I don't want to keep people too long. I want to wish everyone a very, a less dramatic Valentine's Day than the love that Circé and Medea were involved in. Hopefully there's not quite as much betrayal that's a part of your love experience. So any final words or just, we're just so grateful.
Thank you so very much for having us. It's a really wonderful opportunity, and we're glad for the chance to connect and also to connect with students earlier this week. So thank you to you, Eileen, and to everyone at the University of Dayton who made this possible.
We loved having you. We were happy to be able to have some kind of a program. We do have a couple more coming up in March and April, and we look forward to those and wish you all, Les Délices, as well as our audience, a wonderful evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.